catch. Oh.
Man, thou art a wonderful animal, and thy ways past finding out. Thou canst do strange things, but thou turnest them to little account. To conceive of this effort of extraordinary dexterity distracts the imagination and makes admiration breathless. To catch these balls in succession in less than a second of time and deliver them back so as to return with seeming consciousness to the hand again. To make them revolve around him at certain intervals like the planets in their spheres. To do what appears an impossibility, and to do it with all the ease, the grace, the carelessness imaginable, to laugh at, to play with the glittering mockeries. It is skill surmounting difficulty, and beauty triumphing over skill. It makes me ashamed of myself. I ask, what is there that I can do as well as this? Nothing. The utmost I can pretend to is to write a description of what this fellow can do. I have always had this feeling of the inefficacy and slow progress of intellectual compared to mechanical excellence, and it has always made me somewhat dissatisfied. In mechanical efforts you improve by perpetual practice, and you do so infallibly. There is then, in this sort of dexterity, first a gradual aptitude acquired to a given exertion of muscular power from the constant repetition, and in the next place an exact knowledge how much is still wanting and necessary to be supplied. Certain movements and impressions of the hand and eye, having been repeated together an infinite number of times, are unconsciously but unavoidably cemented into closer and closer union. The limbs require little more than to be put in motion for them to follow a regular track with ease and certainty, so that the mere intention of the will acts mathematically, like touching the spring of a machine.
Whenever I think about cricket or about literature or even about history, there's one man who comes to my mind always. That's William Hazlitt. I believe, and I'm glad to notice some other people think so too, that he was the greatest prose writer of his time and one of the great prose writers in English literature. That was for two reasons. He was, first of all, he lived in an age when the sharpness of class conflict, which was introduced by the Industrial Revolution, had not yet overtaken England. And number two, he could write about everything. And he wrote about learning, about history, about painting. He spent many years in Paris trying to be a painter. And he wrote about sports, although he didn't write on cricket, which is a bit surprising because between the day when he was born, 1778, and when he died about 1830, that was the time when the game of cricket as we know it today was formed in all its essentials. But what makes Hazlitt particularly interesting to me is that when I was a boy in the Caribbean, the structure of our society was somewhat similar to the structure of the society in which Hazlitt lived. And I think that on the whole, growing up that way has been of great benefit to me and has enabled me to see the modern world and cricket and a lot of other things in a sort of comprehensive way, which was natural to Hazlitt and in a way was natural to me owing to the kind of life we lived in the Caribbean at the time. Here was I many years ago in Tunapuna, cricket all the time. As a matter of fact, they are playing behind me now. And I suppose in 10 years' time, wherever there is an open space, they will be playing. And I remember being here as a small boy. Somehow the British system had got hold of me, and whether I knew it or not was educating me. I was looking at cricket because I could see the ground from where our house was. I was going to church and listening to what the parson read, and then I would come home and read them in the Bible, and I was living a whole life. My father was a teacher, a very good teacher, highly respected, a man capable in his profession. My mother was this fantastic reader, more than anyone else I have met as a private person. I read the books, then there was the Bible. Then I went to school, got into touch. Even before I went to school, I was reading Thackeray, and all together with the cricket and the books and the Bible and everything else, I was what I could call a British intellectual before I was 10 years of age. It happened to me, or I had been shaped that way. I don't know what it is, but those are the facts of the case, and I am forcibly reminded of them because they began in Tunapuna, and a lot of them took place here, where I am at the present time. The first thing I noticed was a particular stroke. There was cricket in general and a particular stroke. And to this day, my mind is full of particular innings and particular strokes. And I come back, I walk along, and I see boys playing at the side of the road, and then some little boy makes a stroke. He knows nothing about it, but it's a wonderful stroke that I remember and compared to previous ones. And many of the famous cricketers today have begun that way, and now we are having games in which our boys are traveling all over the world. And when I go down to the press box, I find all sorts of technical arrangements whereby they are giving instantaneous reports to India, to England, and to Australia. And although it has reached so high up, it has never left the roof from which it began.
Right below us to our right for 4 runs. So Fredericks now moves on to 25 on the West Indies after only 40 minutes played. 43.
I was born in Trinidad on the 21st of September 1902, the first son of a cricketing father. I think that apart from the prime necessities, cricket must have been one of the first things that I grasped. It was from the time I knew myself the major recreation, perhaps the most important occupation of our household. My first recollection of the game is myself at 3, with an assortment of corn husks, limes and oranges, rounded stones, and a bat made of a coconut branch, walking up and down the road in front of our house and asking anybody who was passing by to bowl me a ball. But if I could not play because I had no one to play with, I could watch.
101, and then 142, I think, in Barbados, and 130 in the first innings at the Queen's Park Oval, and then was run out for 20 in the second innings. So he really has had a tremendous run so far, and he now is on 12, West Indies 58 for 3, Clive Lloyd not yet off the mark. Beatty has removed one of his short legs to strike the offside field, as he tosses up to Richards, who hits him beautifully, and going out to the boundary.
There are few more cosmopolitan little places in the world. The British captured Trinidad in 1797. In 1833, Negro slavery was abolished and labor became scarce as a result. East Indian immigration was therefore adopted, and this lasted until 1917. So that today there are over 100,000 East Indians in Trinidad. Chinese have also settled there, so have Portuguese from Madeira and a few Assyrians. Spaniards coming in from Venezuela continually add to the descendants of the old Spaniards, and one has the opportunity of hearing all sorts of languages and seeing at first hand the style and manners of some of the most important races in the world.
I came from the black middle class, but I won one of the island scholarships to Queen's Royal College, a kind of English public school, and all the masters came from Oxford and Cambridge. I went there in 1911 and taught there afterwards for many years as a master, and I really absorbed a great deal, apart from what I read, from the fact that the masters were what they were, and one almost automatically imitated the ideas of people whom I knew, first of all as a boy, and secondly as a master.
Oswisting, give me the answer you just given, give it on fast. Quid incorpore, Gary Oswisting. Now, give us the answer, not to me, but to all those that are here.
Harry incorporate
No. Harry incorporate Togam Oswald.
Harry incorporate
although more or less we listened to them in the classroom, and they taught us Latin and Greek and advanced mathematics and the way how to behave, and we went to cheat, etc. We did what we had to do, and we listened to them in a sort of a way, but we really paid inner attention and were dominated by the ideas which were instilled into us on the cricket and football field. What is very effective on me here this morning is that tree there. It was here when I came here in 1911, and as much as anything else in the surroundings, that tree is making itself felt inside of me. The game is very much as I used to play it years ago. The routine, the regularity, the instinctive discipline of the game that has forced itself back on me very strongly here this morning. If I were physically fit, I would go out there and play, ask to be allowed to play with them. Look at them. Nobody shouts, nobody is making any scandalous noises. They are going ahead, and at the end of 6 balls they will change over as if it's a military organization. It is very much as it used to be 60 years ago, and I feel very much at home and in harmony with it. And I know that that has had a lot to do with the way I have grown up and the way I have lived. There is a regularity and routine, a ritual about it. The captain moved you in the field. You listened to what he had to say. You didn't argue about it. Then the umpire gave you out. You accepted it. There was no quarreling about it. If I learned any discipline here, it was in the cricket field, because we kept to it instinctively. We had learnt it in books like this, The Captain. And when we were watching, we often had a copy of The Captain near to us, or the boys' own paper circularizing among us. And these magazines all were governed by the principles which you found in the old ideas of public school behavior. All of them kept to that, and we did that instinctively. We accepted that, we swallowed it down, and we read them all and thought that that was the way to behave. And many of us continue that way. I know I have gone on that way, and I read books by Walcott, I read books by Frank Worrell, and read by others and meet them, and I know from the way they behave, the way they talk to me, the way they talk to one another, the way they discuss other people, that those principles are in all of us who had the secondary education in those days.
Ready to resume the struggle with Richards, and Richards is forward defensive. The ball trickles down the wicket. Richards played with admirable restraint, watching the flight of Bedi with circumspection.